I never thought friendship could be measured in dollars. For 15 years, Jack was more than my best friend. He was my brother, my business partner, my confidant. We built our first app together in his parents' garage, dreaming of making it big in the tech world. Those late nights coding, sharing pizza, and ambition felt like the foundation of something unbreakable. Then came the $2 million opportunity that would change everything. Before I tell you how my best friend stabbed me in the back over $50,000, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button if you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted. Completely. The day I met Jack Thompson was unremarkable in every way except for the fact that it changed my life. We were both freshmen at MIT, struggling through our first semester of the computer science program. I was the quiet, analytical type who preferred the company of my laptop to most humans. Jack was my opposite, charismatic, outgoing, with a booming laugh that turned heads across the cafeteria. Our friendship began when we were paired together for a coding project. I was initially annoyed, assuming I would end up doing all the work while Jack charmed his way through his portion. I was dead wrong. Jack might have been sociable, but he was brilliant with code. Where I meticulously planned every line, Jack coded with an intuitive flow, finding creative solutions I never considered. "Mike, you think like a computer," he told me one night as we worked until dawn. "I think like a user." Together we could build anything. By our sophomore year, we were inseparable. We signed up for the same classes, pulled all-nighters in the same study rooms, and spent weekends brainstorming app ideas that would change the world. Jack had the vision. I had the technical precision to make it work. It was a perfect partnership. After graduation, reality hit hard. The tech bubble had just burst and jobs were scarce. We ended up sharing a cramped, one-bedroom apartment in Boston, taking turns, sleeping on a futon that creaked like an old ship in a storm. Jack landed a customer service role at a failing tech startup while I took a mind-numbing IT position at an insurance company. "This is temporary," Jack would say every morning as we downed cheap coffee before heading to jobs we hated. "We just need to pay the bills while we build our own thing." And build we did. Every evening and weekend, we hunched over our laptops at the wobbly kitchen table developing our own applications. Our first 5 attempts flopped spectacularly, but each failure taught us something new. Jack never lost his optimism, even when my own wavered. When my father died unexpectedly from a heart attack, Jack was there before I even called him. He handled the funeral arrangements while I sat in shocked silence. He spoke to relatives when I could not find words. He made sure I ate and slept. "Your dad believed in you," he reminded me. "We have to make this work for him too." 6 months later, when Jack lost his job during company-wide layoffs, I returned the favor. I covered his portion of rent for half a year, never once calling it a loan. That was how we operated. No ledgers, no debts, just absolute trust that we would always have each other's backs. Our breakthrough came 3 years after graduation. We developed a fitness tracking app with a unique algorithm that could predict optimal workout times based on sleep patterns. It was nothing revolutionary, but it filled a niche, and users loved it. The app generated enough revenue for us to quit our day jobs and rent a small office space in a converted factory building downtown. We officially established our company, Code Brothers LLC, with a 50-50 partnership agreement. The legal structure seemed like a mere formality, a piece of paper to make official what we already knew we were in. This together equals in everything. As our business grew steadily, so did our friendship. Jack stood beside me as my best man when I married Sarah, delivering a toast that made even my stoic father-in-law tear up. 3 years later, I returned the favor at his wedding to Alicia. We spent weekends taking our boats out on Lake Winnipesaukee, hosted annual Super Bowl parties that became legendary in our social circle, and built a reputation in the Boston tech community as the inseparable duo who complemented each other perfectly. "Some people get a business partner, or they get a best friend," Jack said during a particularly good fishing trip in New Hampshire. "I got both in one person." He raised his beer bottle to clink against mine. "To brotherhood." I never questioned our friendship or our business arrangement. Why would I? Jack was family in every way that mattered. The email that changed everything arrived on a Tuesday morning in March. Greenfield Ventures, a well-respected venture capital firm from San Francisco, had seen our latest project, a revolutionary communication platform for healthcare providers, and wanted to discuss investment opportunities. They mentioned a potential $2 million investment deal that would catapult our small operation into legitimate startup territory. I remember staring at my computer screen, reading the email 5 times to make sure I understood correctly. When Jack walked into the office carrying our usual coffee order, I spun my monitor toward him without saying a word. He squinted, leaned forward, then nearly dropped both cups as realization dawned. "Holy shit, Mike," he shouted, setting down the coffee and grabbing my shoulders. "This is it. This is what we have been waiting for." That night we celebrated at the Tap, our favorite bar near the office. The place was nothing fancy, just a neighborhood joint with decent beer and bartenders who knew us by name. We claimed our usual corner booth and ordered whiskey instead of beer, a splurge to mark the occasion. $2 million, Jack said, shaking his head in disbelief. "Do you realize what this means? We can hire actual employees," I laughed. "Maybe even an office with windows." Jack leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "Think bigger, Mike. This is our ticket to everything we talked about in college. The big leagues, Silicon Valley conferences, maybe even acquisition offers down the road." We spent hours that night planning our empire, sketching ideas on bar napkins, making promises about how success would not change us. By the time we stumbled into our respective Ubers, we had mapped out the next 5 years of our lives. The initial meetings with Greenfield Ventures were exhilarating. Their lead investor, Thomas Harrington, flew in from San Francisco specifically to meet us. He was impressed with our prototype, particularly the security architecture I had designed. "This solves a major pain point in healthcare communication," Harrington said, nodding approvingly. "The market potential is enormous." As the negotiation process continued, we naturally fell into our usual roles. I focused on improving the technical aspects of our platform, spending long hours refining code and addressing security concerns the investors had raised. Jack handled all the business discussions, the term sheets, equity percentages, valuation models. "You keep making the product brilliant," Jack told me. "I will handle the suits." I trusted him completely. Why would I not? This was Jack, the guy who had helped carry my father's coffin, who had stood by me through every failure and success for 15 years. Looking back, I should have recognized the warning signs. They started small, almost imperceptible shifts in our dynamic. Jack began having lunch meetings he never mentioned until afterward. Just investor stuff, he would say vaguely when I asked. Nothing worth boring you with. Then came the mysterious phone calls that he would take in the hallway, his voice too low to overhear. When he purchased a brand new Tesla without discussing it, I raised an eyebrow. "Just a lease," he explained with a shrug. "Got a good deal. Besides, we need to look successful to be successful, right?" The designer clothes, the expensive haircuts, the sudden interest in golf, all should have alerted me that something had changed. But I dismissed my concerns. People evolve, I told myself. Success was on the horizon, and Jack was simply embracing it early. 2 weeks before the final investment meeting, Jack invited me to his lake house for the weekend. It was April, still too cold for swimming, but perfect for sitting on the deck with a few beers watching the sunset over the water. It was during one of these peaceful moments that Jack said something that should have set off alarm bells. "You ever think about individual opportunities, Mike? I mean, beyond our partnership?" I looked at him confused. "What do you mean?" He shrugged, taking a long sip of his beer. "Nothing specific. Just wondering if we have considered all the possibilities this deal could open up for each of us personally." The comment felt odd, but the moment passed. Later that night, after a few more drinks, I confessed my insecurities about the deal. "Sometimes I worry they are only interested in us because of your business acumen," I admitted. "My contribution is just code. Anyone could write code." Jack put his hand on my shoulder, his expression serious. "That is absolute bullshit, Mike. Your architecture is what makes this product special. We are in this together 100%. Never doubt that." His words reassured me completely. How could I have known they were the biggest lie he had ever told me? The week before the final meeting, I barely slept. I was determined to make our demo flawless, fixing bugs and optimizing performance until my eyes burned. Meanwhile, Jack handled all the paperwork. He brought me documents to sign at odd hours when I was too exhausted to read the fine print. Just standard stuff, he would say, pointing to sticky tabs where I needed to sign. Legal jargon, nothing changing from our discussions. I trusted him. I signed everything without careful review. The morning of the final contract meeting, Jack seemed unusually nervous. He changed his tie 3 times, checked his phone constantly. I attributed it to standard pre-meeting jitters. We were about to secure $2 million after all. Who would not be anxious? Ready to become millionaires, I asked, as we pulled into the parking lot of Greenfield's Boston office. Jack gave me a tight smile that did not quite reach his eyes. More than ready. I had no idea I was walking into an ambush. The conference room at Greenfield Ventures looked like something from a movie floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Boston skyline. A massive mahogany table so polished I could see my reflection in leather chairs that probably cost more than my first car. Thomas Harrington and 3 other investors sat on one side with their legal team positioned at the end. Jack and I took our seats across from them. Gentleman Harrington began today. We formalize our partnership. Before we sign, let us review the final structure one more time for clarity. I nodded, expecting to hear the terms we had all agreed upon. $2 million investment for 30% equity, leaving Jack and me with 35% each of our company. What Harrington said next felt like a physical blow. As per the restructured ownership Jack proposed last week, Greenfield will receive 25% equity for our $2 million investment, with Jack holding 60% as CEO and Chief Business Officer, and Mike retaining 15% as Chief Technology Officer. The room seemed to tilt sideways. I turned to Jack, certain there had been some mistake. The cold, avoiding look in his eyes told me everything. "Jack," I managed to say, my voice strangely calm despite the roaring in my ears. "What is he talking about?" Before Jack could answer, Harrington continued, seemingly oblivious to my shock. "And of course we have already transferred the $50,000 advance to Jack for immediate operating expenses as requested." $50,000 advance? I had no knowledge of any of this. Also, one of the junior investors added, "We were very impressed with the proprietary algorithm Jack developed. That encryption protocol is exactly what sets this platform apart from competitors." My encryption protocol. My algorithm. The one I had spent 18 months perfecting while Jack was supposedly handling the business side. "Jack did not develop that algorithm," I said, my voice tight. "I did." The room fell silent. Harrington looked from me to Jack, his expression darkening. "There seems to be some confusion," he said carefully. "Jack represented that code as his own work. He stated you were primarily responsible for implementation, not architecture." I felt physically ill. 15 years of friendship, of absolute trust, destroyed in a single moment. Jack had not only slashed my ownership and pocketed $50,000 without my knowledge, he had claimed credit for my work, my intellectual contribution that made our product valuable in the first place. "This meeting is over," I said, standing up so abruptly my chair toppled backward. "There will be no deal today." "Mike, sit down," Jack hissed, grabbing my arm. "You are overreacting. We can discuss this privately." I yanked my arm away. "Gentlemen, I apologize, but I need to speak with my partner. Alone." The investors exchanged uncomfortable glances. Harrington cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should reschedule, when you two have resolved your differences." I barely heard him. The blood pounding in my ears drowned out everything except the need to get answers from Jack. In the parking lot, rain had started falling, matching my darkening mood. I confronted Jack between our parked cars, not caring that we were getting soaked. "What the hell was that?" I demanded, my voice breaking with rage and betrayal. 60%. 15 for me. Taking credit for my code. A $50,000 advance. I knew nothing about what happened to 50-50 Jack. What happened to brotherhood? Jack's face changed then. The mask of friendship fell away, completely revealing a calculating stranger I had never truly seen before. "Grow up, Mike," he said coldly. "This is business. I did all the work bringing in these investors. I handled every negotiation, every meeting. You think writing code entitles you to half a company? The business side is what matters, and that is all me. We built this together," I said, my voice hoarse with disbelief. 15 years, Jack. 15 years of friendship, of trust. And where did that get us? He cut me off. A cramped office and barely 6 figures each. I deserve more and I took it. That is how business works in the real world. How long, I asked, rain streaming down my face, mingling with tears I refused to acknowledge. How long have you been planning this? Jack checked his watch impatiently. Months, since the first meeting with Greenfield. They approached me directly, you know. They saw me as the visionary. You were always just the technician. Every word was a knife. I stepped closer, hands clenched at my sides. And the $50,000. Where is that already spent, he said with a dismissive wave. Operating expenses, like they said. On what, your Tesla? Those $1,000 suits. His silence was confirmation enough. Something broke inside me. 15 years of friendship shattered in an instant. I lunged forward, grabbing his expensive lapels, surprising even myself with my rage. Mike, he shouted, shoving me back. Touch me again, and I will sue you for assault. It is over. Accept it and move on. Security guards from the building approached, drawn by our confrontation. Jack straightened his suit, giving me one last cold look. My lawyer will be in touch about dissolving our previous arrangement. Do not contact me directly again. He walked away, leaving me standing in the rain, completely broken. The aftermath was devastating. Greenfield Ventures pulled out completely, citing irreconcilable partnership conflicts as their reason. When I returned to our office the next day, my keycard no longer worked. Jack had changed the locks and the security codes. My emails to our company account bounced back. My calls went straight to voicemail. When I finally received a communication, it was from Jack's lawyer, a cease and desist letter warning me against making defamatory statements about Jack or the company. I discovered Jack had legally locked me out of all company accounts. Our business banking cloud services, even our development repositories, everything required authorization I no longer possessed. The code I had written for years was suddenly beyond my reach. Financial panic set in quickly. Most of my savings had been reinvested in the business held in company accounts I could no longer access. My personal checking account contained barely enough for 2 months' rent. At 35 years old, I was facing complete financial ruin. With no other options, I moved back into my childhood bedroom in my widowed mother's house in Worcester. The room was exactly as I had left it, at 18 MIT pennants on the wall. Computer science textbooks on the shelves, twin bed barely long enough for my adult frame. The physical regression matched my emotional state perfectly. Night after night I lay awake, reliving the betrayal. Sleep, when it came, brought vivid nightmares of Jack laughing as I drowned in paperwork. I would wake gasping, covered in sweat, reaching for my phone to call the one person who had always talked me through hard times, only to remember that person was the source of my pain. Panic attacks became regular occurrences. My confidence as a developer eroded. If my best friend, the person who knew me better than anyone, thought I was worth only 15% of our shared dream, maybe I truly was just a replaceable coder. I questioned every friendship, every relationship. Sarah, my ex-wife, had left 2 years earlier, citing my emotional unavailability. Maybe she had seen something fundamentally unlovable in me that Jack had eventually seen too. The lowest point came 6 weeks after the betrayal. I was in my father's old workshop in the basement, a place I had avoided since his death. Looking for a screwdriver to fix my mother's kitchen cabinet, I found a box of my old college projects. Inside was a notebook filled with early sketches of what would eventually become our healthcare platform. There in the margins were notes in my handwriting about the encryption protocol, the very one Jack had claimed as his own. Seeing this tangible proof of my contribution broke something in me. I collapsed onto the dusty workshop floor, sobbing uncontrollably for the first time since the betrayal. My mother found me there an hour later, curled around that notebook as if it were a life raft. She said nothing, simply sat beside me on the concrete floor, her arthritic hand gently stroking my hair as I cried. When the tears finally stopped, a strange clarity took their place. Jack had taken my company, my money, my office, but he could not take my knowledge or my talent. The code in my head was still mine. And suddenly, with perfect certainty, I knew I would not surrender to this betrayal. The next morning I called Diane Lopez, a tech-savvy attorney I had met at a coding conference years earlier. I laid out everything that had happened, not sparing any details of my own naive trust. Jack violated several terms of your original partnership agreement, she told me after reviewing the documents. And if he represented your code as his work to investors, that is fraud. We have a case, but it will not be quick or easy. I do not care, I told her. I want my company back. While the legal process began its slow grind, I focused on rebuilding. My mother converted her dining room into a makeshift office. I salvaged an old desktop computer from the basement, upgraded it with parts I could afford, and set up shop. Using Git backups I had fortunately stored on my personal laptop, I recovered most of my code. Not the latest versions, but enough to prove ownership and continue development. I worked 18-hour days improving the architecture, adding features Jack could never understand, much less replicate. I reached out to former clients who had worked directly with me, explaining my situation without bad-mouthing Jack. Many were sympathetic, having experienced betrayals of their own. 3 agreed to work with me on my new venture, providing enough income to move out of my mother's house into a small apartment. The legal battle was brutal. Jack hired an aggressive legal team that buried us in motions and delays. During his deposition, he portrayed me as a mediocre developer who had ridden his coattails. He claimed the business success was entirely due to his networking and strategy. But discovery worked in my favor. Email records showed Jack had approached investors behind my back months before the final meeting. Financial records revealed he had diverted company funds to personal accounts beyond the $50,000 advance. Most damning were the technical documents where he had literally copy-pasted my development notes and presented them as his own work. Other people Jack had wronged began coming forward. A former college classmate revealed Jack had stolen his project idea. A previous employer described how Jack had taken client contacts when leaving. A pattern of deception emerged that strengthened my case. 6 months into the legal process, Jack attempted to settle. His lawyer offered me $100,000 to drop all claims. It was tempting. I was still struggling financially, eating ramen noodles more often than not. But I refused. This was no longer about money. It was about justice and reclaiming what was rightfully mine. While the lawsuit proceeded, an unexpected shift occurred in the Boston tech community. Word of Jack's betrayal spread through informal networks. Investors became wary of dealing with him. Former mutual friends chose sides, and many chose mine, impressed by my refusal to be crushed by his actions. Thomas Harrington from Greenfield Ventures contacted me directly, expressing regret over the situation. "We backed the wrong horse," he admitted. "Your technical expertise was what interested us in the first place." Jack's business acumen seemed impressive, but now we question everything he presented. After 9 grueling months, our case finally reached the courtroom. I sat at the plaintiff's table watching Jack testify, looking uncomfortable in a suit that no longer seemed to fit him properly. His company, my company, had struggled without my technical leadership. The platform had developed critical bugs that his newly hired developers could not resolve. My attorney presented irrefutable evidence of my code ownership through time-stamped repositories and development logs. Expert witnesses testified to the uniqueness of my encryption protocol. Former professors confirmed my technical capabilities dated back to college projects. The judge's ruling was comprehensive and unambiguous. Jack had violated our partnership agreement, committed fraud by misrepresenting my work, and illegally diverted company assets. The court ordered full restoration of my 50% ownership, return of all misappropriated funds with interest, and payment of my legal fees. Most satisfying was the public apology Jack was required to make. Standing before the court, his face ashen, he admitted to betraying my trust, claiming my work as his own, and attempting to cut me out of our business. "I was wrong," he said, unable to meet my eyes. The intellectual property and business success were created through Mike's contributions as much as my own, if not more. Walking out of that courthouse, I felt 20 pounds lighter. The company was legally mine again, with Jack removed from operations, though retaining financial interest pending further proceedings. The $50,000 would be returned with penalties and damages. But the victory went beyond legal and financial restoration. I had stood up for myself. I had fought instead of surrendering. And in doing so, I had discovered a strength I never knew I possessed. 5 years have passed since that rainy day in the Greenfield Ventures parking lot. My company, renamed Integrity Systems, has grown beyond anything Jack and I had envisioned. The healthcare platform now serves major hospital networks across the country, with a team of 30 dedicated developers implementing my technical vision. The investment round we eventually secured was for $5 million on much better terms than Jack had negotiated. I maintained controlling interest while bringing in partners whose values aligned with mine: transparency, collaboration, and recognition of all contributions. Every employee agreement clearly documents intellectual property rights, with systems for acknowledging individual innovations. Rebuilding myself proved harder than rebuilding the business. Trust does not return easily once shattered so completely. For months, I scrutinized every new relationship for signs of hidden agendas. I required multiple layers of documentation for simple agreements. I questioned sincere offers of partnership. Therapy helped me process the trauma of betrayal. My therapist helped me understand that Jack's actions reflected his character, not my worth. Gradually, I learned to trust again, not blindly as before, but with appropriate boundaries and clear agreements. New friendships formed deeper in some ways for being tested by my initial suspicion. My technical mentor from MIT, Dr. Abrams, became a trusted advisor. Samantha, another founder who had weathered a similar betrayal, became a close friend and occasional dinner companion. My mother, who had supported me through rock bottom, saw me rise higher than ever before. 2 years after the court case, I encountered Jack at a tech conference in Seattle. He looked older, diminished somehow. The venture he had started after our separation had failed spectacularly. Industry rumors suggested he had attempted the same manipulative tactics with new partners, only to be exposed much earlier. He approached me during a coffee break, hovering awkwardly until I acknowledged him. "You look good, Mike," he said, his tone suggesting surprise. "The company is doing well." I read about the hospital network expansion. I nodded, feeling strangely detached. This man who had once been the center of my world now seemed like a stranger. "It is." I was wrong. He offered the closest thing to a genuine apology I had heard from him. About everything. I should have never. "It does not matter anymore, Jack," I interrupted, not out of anger, but from a place of peace. It worked out as it should have. He looked like he wanted to say more, but I simply nodded goodbye and walked away. There was nothing more to discuss, no relationship to salvage. Some betrayals change you permanently, closing doors that can never be reopened. The lessons from Jack's betrayal have shaped every aspect of my life and business. I learned to trust my instincts about warning signs in relationships. I discovered the importance of proper documentation and clear business structures. I realized that true character reveals itself when temptation arises. Most importantly, I learned that rebuilding after betrayal is more healing than revenge could ever be. Jack's life spiraled downward through his own continued choices, while mine soared through deliberate reconstruction. Success became my most eloquent response to his betrayal. Today, my company operates with a level of transparency that has become our signature in the industry. Our development process, while protecting proprietary information, gives credit to every contributor. Our profit-sharing system ensures all employees benefit from collective success. The culture we have built stands as the antithesis of the secrecy and manipulation that nearly destroyed everything. I still think about Jack sometimes, not with the burning pain of fresh betrayal, but with a complex mixture of gratitude and sadness. His betrayal forced me to find strengths I never knew I had. It led me to build something far greater than our original vision. Yet I still occasionally mourn the brotherhood I thought we had, the 15 years of memories now colored by knowledge of his true character. Trust is different for me now, a precious resource to be earned through consistent action rather than freely given. I have formed new partnerships, new friendships, but with clear boundaries and expectations from the beginning. There is a certain freedom in this approach, a security that comes from protecting yourself while still remaining open to genuine connection. If you are watching this video because someone has betrayed your trust, know that the path forward exists, even when the pain suggests otherwise. The betrayal is about their character, not your worth. Your talent, your knowledge, your integrity, these remain yours regardless of what was taken. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely? How did you rebuild afterward? Drop a comment below. Sharing your story, your experience, might help someone else who is just beginning their healing journey. If this story resonated with you, please hit the subscribe button and share this video with anyone struggling with betrayal. Remember, sometimes losing what we thought we had opens the door to building something far greater than we ever imagined. Thank you for listening, and I wish you strength in your own journey of trust, betrayal, and rebuilding.